All right, welcome to step 4. Thank you for being on this journey. So far, we've gone through some pretty amazing stuff, right? We've talked about pain and pleasure. So my question for you is, which one is winning in your life? Are you using pain versus pleasure for you, or is it working against you? How are you doing with actually living the week schedule we talked about? We talked about writing out your perfect week schedule, nailing the morning, and then living that throughout the week. How is that going? Are you tracking it? We talked about your perfect client. Have you got more clear on who your perfect client is and how you're going to go find them? All right, are you ready? So, and another great question is, I ask yourself this: this is the most simple question that I think is really brilliant. What's working and what's not working? And just take a step back and ask yourself what's working and what's not working. One thing is, as especially high achievers and entrepreneurs like you and I, sometimes we fail to slow down a little bit and figure out what's working, what's not working. Right? We just keep going. So I'm going to challenge you. Set aside a time every single week. Maybe it's Friday late afternoon or Sunday evening. I do mine on Sunday evening, where I take a moment and I just go, okay, this last week, what worked, what didn't work? And I go, cool, for this next week, what's the most important things? What am I going to do different this next week as opposed to that I did last week? And we've talked about questions. Are you asking yourself big, powerful questions? One of the questions that someone posted the other day that I thought was brilliant, they said, can I go home at the end of the day, can I look my daughter in the eye and say, you know what? The time that I spent away from you, I played in 100%. Like, while I wasn't here with you, when I was out there doing my job, I played 100%. And I was like, for me, that question was like a little convicting. And I'm going, I don't know if every single day I could go home and look my kids in the eyes and go, I played 100%, like I didn't waste any time. So, all right, we're good. So ask yourself powerful questions. Get ready to move into this. We're going to give you some powerful stuff today. We're going to talk about, 5 critical decisions that the most successful people make. And then we're going to dive into this concept of lead measures and lag measures. Do you have a predictable business? What numbers do you need to track to get there? So here we go. I want to start us off with a quote that I heard last week, and I'm not going to nail it yet. I'm going to give you my version of this. Albert Hitchcock said this, and it was so brilliant. He goes, people ask him, how do you make a movie? How do you know it's going to work out? How do you know what's going to happen? He goes, the movie has been made in my mind way before we ever take the first picture, before we ever film the first scene. I see it before it shows up. So one of the things that I'm challenging you on is get clear on where you're going. Have a clear picture of who you want to work with. Get a clear picture of what kind of business you choose to have so that it's clear in your mind. And then we just got to do the steps to make it show up, right? So that the result is, and here's what he said, the result is literally a afterthought. Right? The result you get is an afterthought because you've done the thinking, you've done the preparation, and you're ready to go. All right, so here we go. I'm going to give you 5 critical decisions that every successful person makes. So here's number 1. Winners anticipate and losers react. Right? Winners anticipate. They know what could be coming. They've prepared. They have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, right? They're ready for whatever comes their way, while losers just react. And it's amazing how, so many things come into our life and there's just this immediate reaction. Yet the reality is you can make a choice, right? Something happens in your life, you get to choose how you respond to that. One of my good friends said one time, he goes, sometimes when somebody comes to me with an issue and maybe it lights me up a little bit, I get a little ticked off. He goes, sometimes I'll ask them, do you want my reaction? Or do you want my response? I can give you my reaction right now, right? I'm lit up. I give you my reaction right now. Or I can give you my response, and yet it may take a minute. So really successful people, winners, they choose a response. They're not just in reaction mode all the time. Successful people make the decision on whether they're going to be a victim or a victor. In life, there's 2 kinds of people, right? There's victims and there's victors. Victims are someone that they blame other people all the time, right? They're never really responsible for whatever happens. Every time something comes in, they reject reality, right? They push it off. You go to victim, you say, why didn't this project get done? They go, oh, well, if this person would have done their job, then I could. It's never their fault. It's never their responsibility, right? They take everything personal. And a victim, the problem with the victim is they never really move forward. Because if you're never responsible, if it's always somebody else's fault, you get stuck stuck where you are, right? Whereas a victor, someone who is accountable, a victor, they take responsibility. If something happens in their world, one of the questions they ask themselves is they go, where's my fingerprint in this? Where did I have some responsibility in this? And the bigger the life you want to have, the more responsibility you're going to have to take. So ask yourself on a day-to-day basis, am I a victim or am I a victor? Victors acknowledge reality. They seek new ways of doing things. They go, what happened? What was my DNA in this? And then what can I do differently moving forward? A victor is someone that every time that something negative happens in their life, one of the questions they ask themselves is, what can I do in the future so this doesn't happen again? A victim says, how can I avoid this in the future, right? Victor takes responsibility. A victim will never move forward because they never take responsibility. You've got to take responsibility in your life if you want things to change. The reality is stuff's going to happen in your business. Things are not going to work out. So you got to make a decision. If a transaction falls apart, are you going to blame everybody else? Or are you going to say, what can I do differently next time to make sure this never happens again? There was a famous wine company and they said, what did you do to build this business to such an incredible level? And he goes, every time something goes wrong, we write it. We write every wrong. And what he meant by that was every time something goes wrong, we literally add a step. We write something down. We add something to a checklist. We write every wrong, right? So every time something goes wrong, they put a new system in place or they add a detail, whatever it is, so it doesn't happen again. And that's the only way you're going to grow in this life is by being a victor, taking responsibility, going, where's my DNA in this? Maybe your DNA in this is who you choose to work with, right? If you choose to work with terrible people, you're probably going to have, rough transactions. So where in your business do you need to take more responsibility? Where in your business do you need to step up and be a victor and stop being a victim? Are you with me? Number 3 is one of the defining factors for success is, are you limited by your resources or are you an incredibly resourceful person? Are you someone that's limited by resources or are you someone that is incredibly resourceful? Reminds me of a story by Richard Branson. And he said there was a time early on in his life when he's at this airport and I think he was going to see a girl that he was into or whatever. And he's at this airport. There's this terrible weather. So all the planes get grounded, right? So there's hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands and thousands of people, right? Grounded. And yet he goes, I want to go see this girl. What can I do? So what he does is he finds this private little airport right next door. He asks them, how much would it cost to charter this can you fly in this? They go, yeah, we can fly in this. He goes, how much would it cost to charter this plane to go? And that's where a lot of people, that would have been a very resourceful, even to go that step. Then here's what he does. He goes back in the terminal, he gets a sign and he goes, hey, for $250 or $300, whatever it was, I can get you to wherever he was going. Goes around and gets another 15, 20 people to get here to do this with him. And then all of a sudden he's got this entourage of people going with him. They're all paying like $300, $400 for the ticket. And then all of a sudden his private flight chartered to go see his girlfriend is paid by these other 20 people, right? So what blows my mind about that story is there's thousands of people in the airport. And what do? They all go, dang, there's no planes going, right? They all go, dang, I'm out of resources, and they shut down. What does Richard Branson do, right? Richard Branson goes, I'm an incredibly resourceful person. I know where I want to, I'm going to go see the girl, and I'm going to figure this out. So he does all these different things, finds a way, and then on top of that, he goes, I don't have any money to pay for this thing, so he finds for the people to actually pay for the freaking plane. That is an incredibly resourceful person. So ask yourself, when you come to obstacles in the road, do you first think about, I'm limited by my resources, or do you think, how can I be resourceful in this situation? Because the most successful people that I know are incredibly resourceful, right? When they don't have enough time, they find a way. When they don't have enough money, they find the money. When they don't have enough energy, they freaking create it, right? They're not limited by the resources. They're incredibly resourceful people. Tony Robbins said, it's not your lack of resources that causes failure. It's your lack of resourcefulness. So one of the decisions you've got to make is make the decision to be a resourceful person. When there's no way, I will freaking find out the way. And that's what makes all the difference in the world. Are you with me? There's so many people that get to the end of their life and one of their regrets is, I didn't do this and this and this. And you go, why didn't you do it? And they go, I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough money. And yet at the end of their life, looking back, they go, I would have found a way. I would have become a more resourceful person. So number 3 is make the decision to be a resourceful person who is not limited just by resources. Number four, let me share a story with you. So years ago, there was a psychologist that went out to interview these two men. And the reason that she went out to interview these two men is they were brothers who had grown up in a really tragic situation. They grew up in a home where their dad was abusive, alcoholic, the whole nine, right? Terrible situation to grow up in. And yet the reason that she became interested in them is one of the sons went on to basically mirror his dad. He went on to have an alcoholic life and be, a terrible father by all measurements. And the other son went on to be this incredible successful in business, successful in his home life. And she goes, how is it that these boys, right, were raised in the same home and yet went completely different directions? So she went out and interviewed them, and she went to the first brother, right? She goes to him, she goes, how did you end up here? How did you end up more or less just like your dad? And he said, right, he goes, I had no choice. Look at my father. And then she goes to this other boy, right, the other son that had been wildly successful. She goes, how did you end up this way? And he goes, I had no choice. He goes, look at my dad. There's no way I was going to be that way. And what blows my mind about that story is same situation, right? And yet they went completely different ways. And the same event, incredibly different outcome. Now, at the time, they felt like they didn't have a choice. Yet the reality is, and here's number 4, successful people realize this. They realize that there is an event and not an automatic outcome. There's an event, and this event plus your response equals the outcome. It's the event happens, you choose a response, and then you have an outcome. Now, here's one of the reasons so many people struggle with this, because we've been doing the same responses for so long, they feel automatic. Right? So somebody cuts you off in traffic and immediately we have a response, right? Some of us have a really great response. Some of us have a response that's in French and sign language and everything else. Yet that response, that outcome happens so fast, it doesn't feel like you had a choice. Yet the reality is successful people realize that life is, I think Dennis Waitley said this the first time, he goes, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond. And the longer I live, the more I interview successful people, the more I realize that's true. Stuff's going to happen that's out of your control, right? Transactions are going to fall apart. Relationships are going to fall apart. Someone's going to get sick. Life is going to be tough. Something's going to happen. Yet that's 10% of the equation. The other 90% is you choosing how you respond, right? Some people lose everything and they never get back up. They go, I lost everything. How can I ever get back up? And then other people go, I lost everything. Of course, I had to get back up. I lost everything, right? Event plus the response equals the outcome. So ask yourself, in your business, right? What do you feel a victim of, yet really you could choose a different response? Right? In your business, there's going to be events that happen. Maybe that either you screwed up or somebody else screwed up, something happened. Your response makes all the difference in the world, right? When a transaction falls apart, how do you respond to dictate the income? So one of the great questions you might start asking yourself is there something I can do about this or not? Right? Can I impact this or not? And what's the lesson and what will I do different moving forward? Failures, we talk about failures. The only people that really fail are the people that choose not to learn the lesson. They choose not to learn the lesson. They had an event, right? They had a response. The outcome was not what they wanted. They choose to learn the lesson so it doesn't happen again. Does that make sense? All right. So remember, event plus your response equals the outcome, equals the kind of life you're going to have. Number 5 of the 5 decisions, and this is probably the all-encompassing one. Number 5 is take responsibility. Make the decision to take ultimate responsibility in your life. And here's what's amazing about this. Most people want happiness, and yet they refuse to take responsibility. And I believe it was Freud that said, make no mistake, the true price of happiness is 100% responsibility. What stands between you and complete happiness? Now, most people, when I ask them that question, they give me a list. They go, well, if I had more money, or if my spouse was more supportive, or if my kids listened better, whatever it is, my business was bigger. And yet the reality is what stands between you and complete happiness is 100% responsibility. If I'm not taking responsibility for it, if I'm blaming someone else, here's what I'm saying, right? On an unconscious level, what I'm saying is if my kids were better, then I would be happy. The scary thing about that is I just gave all the control of my happiness to somebody else. If my clients just were better, right? All of a sudden I've just given all the power in my life to somebody else. And my happiness is contingent on all these other things getting into place. And if your happiness is contingent on external things, you'll never be happy because you'll never have control. You can't have control of everything. You've got to take responsibility and realize that happiness and contentment and joy is something that comes from the inside because you've taken 100% responsibility in your life. It's amazing. There was a guy that was complaining one day and he was going, I don't like my wife, I don't like my kids, and I hate my house, and my job is terrible, right? And the other guy looked at him and goes, are you kidding me? You married her, they're your kids, you picked the job, and you bought the house. Like, you did this. People say, right? You're the one that ate the food. You're the one that didn't go to the gym. You're the one that took the job. You're the one that slept in. You're the one that didn't take action fast enough. You're the one that didn't put enough money in savings. You're the one that didn't shift proof your business. You've got to take 100% responsibility in every area of life you truly want to be happy. Now, here's the cool thing, right? For some of us, that's kind of like an oh crap moment, because like, if I'm 100% responsible, I'm the one that got me here. So if I'm at a place I don't want to be, like, that's on me. The cool thing is, it's on you. And if you want to go somewhere different, it's still on you, and you can make the choice. So make no mistake, in the end, the ultimate price of happiness is 100% responsibility. Taking responsibility for everything in your life, and then making the decisions on what you want to change and what you don't want to change. All right, so we've talked about the 5 critical decisions you got to make. Now, here's another critical decision as a business owner you got to make. You've got to make the decision to start tracking your numbers at a higher level. You've got to track what's working and what's not working. There's so many business owners that they're not tracking the most critical numbers in their business, and that would be just like someone flying a plane without any gauges. So my question for you is depending on where you're at in your business, what are the gauges in your dashboard that you need to be looking at on a yearly basis, a monthly basis, a daily basis, to know, am I on track to hit my goals, or am I off track to hit my goals? If numbers are the language of business, one of the things I love about numbers is they don't lie. The numbers add up. 2 plus 2 is 2 plus 2 forever, right? It's going to equal 4 till the end of time. You've got to track your numbers so you know, am I on track to hit my goal or not? You know, you look at a plane that's flying across the country, and it's off track a lot of the time, correct? And it's recorrecting because it has gauges. It knows, it doesn't just line up the first time and hope it gets there. It has gauges, so it course correct all along the way. So in our business, most businesses, you as an individual, as an entrepreneur, right, you have 3 big assets, and your 3 big assets are your time, your money, and your energy, right? Those 3 things are not, right? You've got those 3 things. You've got time, you've got money, and you have energy. So you ask yourself, how can I use those assets at the highest level? Your obligation as a business owner is to maximize your time and use it in the most effective way, right? It's also to use the money in the best way. And it's the, how do I manage my energy? You know, time is such an interesting thing, right? Are you limited by time, or do you know how to manage it on a high level, right? If you look at, especially this one, people say, you know, is energy really an asset? Energy is an asset, and here's why. Every day you only have so much energy, correct? Like, your energy level is kind of like a cell phone battery, right? The more decisions you make, the more stupid decisions you make, the more decisions you make in general, the more that battery begins to drain. So my question for you is, if you don't know your numbers as a business owner, if you're not tracking what's working and what's not working on a number level, how are you making choices of where to spend your time and your money and your energy? Right? So many people, they make choices like this. They go, hey, should I do this business venture? Should I run an ad campaign over here, whatever it is? And they go, I think so. And they do it off of what they think, not what they know. Here's what I've discovered coaching thousands of agents. The numbers are never what you think they are. Meaning, most people, either they exaggerate the numbers and they think they're way better than they really are, or they downplay the numbers. Usually they're not right, because our mind kind of skews them a little bit. So you've got to start tracking numbers. Remember your 3 big assets. So let's go to this. As a business owner, what are the most important numbers you need to track? And there's a book written, you should probably go out and read, 4 Disciplines of Execution. And one of the great things that came out of that book, the 4 Disciplines of Execution, was this awareness of there's basically 2 categories of numbers you need to track in your business. And you've got lead numbers and you have lag numbers. If you're a real estate agent, think about, what are the lead measures? The lead measures are like, what can I control on a day-to-day basis? A lead measure would be, I can control how many hours I spend on the phone. I can control how many contacts I make in those hours. I can probably control how many appointments I set up. Right? The lag measures are going to be more the results, the things that we can't always control, right? The lag measures are going to be, how many of the listings did I take actually sold, right? How many of the listings did I take went under contract? Whatever it was, what are the lag measures? So in the beginning, I want you to keep this simple. when things are overcomplicated, it's really hard to follow through, right? So if you're newer in this business, I want you to realize that complexity is the enemy of achievement. I'll say it again, right? Complexity is the enemy of achievement. So keep it simple. So if I'm in a real estate business, right, I'm going to start tracking 2 or 3 numbers on the lead side and 2 or 3 numbers on the lag side. And then eventually over time, I can keep adding to this so I'm tracking everything. Yet in the beginning, in the real estate, so here's one of the things I want you to start tracking, right? How many hours are you lead generating, right? Start writing that down. How many contacts are you making in those hours? And then of those contacts, how many appointments are you setting up? Right? Then on the lag side, you're going to start tracking of the contacts I set up. How many of those appointments did I actually get? How many of those appointments turn into actual listings? And then the other lag numbers of those listings I took, how many actually sold? Now, here's the brilliance behind all this. The brilliance is most people don't track their numbers very well. So if they need to double their business, they go, I just have to work harder. Yet they have no idea what they really need to do, right? They go, I did this much in volume and I don't really know how I'm going to do it. So the cool thing about tracking your numbers is if I know that it takes me, let's say on average for a real estate agent, it takes 80 contacts to get a closed piece of business, right? So of the 80 contacts that I make, I'm going to talk to some of the people, I'm going to set some appointments, I'm going to go on some appointments, and something's actually going to close. So if I can track all my numbers the other way around, I can go, cool. So it takes me 80 contacts to get a closed piece of business. So here's the amazing thing about this. Then in December or January 1st, when I get ready to start my year, I can go, awesome. How many closings do I want to have the year? And then all I need to do is take that, if it's 80 contacts to a closing, I just go, cool, I want to have 50 closings. 50 times 80 is whatever number it is. And that's how many contacts I have to make for the whole entire year. So all of a sudden, you have enough gauges on the dashboard of this plane you're flying to success that you can go, cool, I either need to push this lever, I need to pull back in this lever. You know what to do. You have control over your business, right? And that's where it gets really cool. You begin to have, if you know your numbers, if you know these lead numbers and these lag numbers, you begin to have the ever elusive, predictable business. And here's what's amazing. Do you think big businesses know their numbers? Absolutely. They know their numbers all day long, right? I can't think of a single business, a big business that's successful that doesn't know their numbers. So, if you're in mortgage, here's what you got to do. You got to go, how many referrals do I need? Right? How many leads do I need? How many pre-applications do I need? The pre-apps that actually go into pre-approval, that actually go over here, they get under contract, something that actually close. What's that number? How many leads do I need to get a month? And then I go, cool, I got 10 realtors, they're sending me 10 leads a month, and that hits my goal. And if I wanted to double my goal, what would I need to do? Just go get 20, right? Instead of 10, I need 20. So what I want you to understand is numbers really are the language of business. And when you begin to know your numbers, all of a sudden you're in control of the plane. You know which levers to push that are going to give you the lag numbers you're after. Too often, I work with agents all the time, and right, they get to the end of the year, they go, cool, how do we do, right? And all they're focused on is the lag numbers. Yet if that's all you're focused on, you don't have any real control over your business. So let me make this really simple for you, because I love simple. I think that the most brilliant people in the world bring things right back down to simple. So if I'm in my business, here's how I'm tracking this in the beginning. At the end of each day, I'm just going to start writing down my numbers, whether I have a big whiteboard, whether I do it in Excel, whether I do it in a tracking system like I use with my clients. You've got to track them every day. Now, a brilliant mentor of mine gave me advice one time, and he said, instead of writing down your numbers at 9 or 10 o'clock at night when your brain is fried, right? He goes, what I do is after my lead generation time, right, at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, that's when I write down my results from lead generation. I write them down right then, and I'm tracking them as I do it, because I know that by 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, I won't remember what happened, or I won't have the energy to do it. So he goes, I would write down my lead generation results, right, from my morning schedule at 1 o'clock, whatever it was, write those down. And then the next morning, the first thing I did is I would write down any results I had in the afternoon for the previous day. It was just a very simple system for you. I want you to just keep that in mind. If things are too complex, you're not going to take action. So make a system that's simple for you to track your lead numbers and your lag numbers, so you know which levers do I need to push to have a predictable business. If I came to you right now and said, how many contacts a day do you need to make to hit your goal? Would you know that answer? And if you don't know that answer, that should concern you. So go figure out what that answer is. How many contacts do I have to make to get an appointment? of the appointments that I go on, how many actually sign, and how many actually turn into closed business. If those are the only 5 numbers you tracked for the next several months, I guarantee it will give you massive insight into your business and actually put you, instead of being in the victim seat, right, in this plane that's just flying, all of a sudden it puts you in the pilot seat and you're in control of where your business goes. You begin to have a predictable, incredible business. One of the reasons that entrepreneurs struggle all the time is because they don't know exactly what they need to be doing and when they need to be doing it, right? So they're not clear on the 2 or 3 big rocks that move everything forward, right? So we show up to the day, whether no matter what business you're in, right? And all of you, no matter if you're real estate and mortgage, right? You're building houses, you've got 1,000 things you can do, correct? Right? And you've got all these things, and yet sometimes we talked a couple of videos ago, right? The most important things don't always yell the loudest. So what I want you to do is I want you to figure out what are those 2 or 3 lead measures that are absolutely critical in your business, whether it's making 10 contacts a day or writing 5 cards or meeting with 2 realtors, whatever it is. Get absolutely clear on what those are and come up with what are my 2 or 3 big rocks every day that if I knock those out of the park, I know I'm going to hit my goal. Here's the reality. You can predict the future. And what I mean by that is that you can predict the future if you figure out what do I need to do each day to get there. See, too often we haven't got that clarity on what are my daily to do, what's the rocks I need to do each day to get there. So every day we just show up, we're overwhelmed if we're not hitting our goals, right? How often does this happen, right? You show up, you're not on track to hit your goals, and you go, all right, I just have to do more. And if I don't know my numbers, my only strategy is just do more, which is really exhausting, right? Because you're kind of doing more in all these different categories. And yet if I've got clarity on this and I go, cool, in order to hit my goals, I got to make this many contacts a day. I got to do this many follow-ups every day. And if I continue to do that based on my tracking my numbers, I know I'm on track to hit my goal for the year. It's one of the things that will help you with discouragement. It's one of the things that will keep you in momentum. It's one of the things that will keep you passionate about your business, is knowing at the end of the day, I did the 2 or 3 most important things that are going to automatically take me to success. I'm not going to just maybe ride there, right? I'm going to automatically end up there if I've done the right things. Does that make sense? And another piece of this is if you're building a real estate team, or you're building a mortgage team, or you're building a home building team, whatever it is, you've got to know your numbers, not just for yourself. You got to know your numbers for your team members. You got to be able to show them, hey, look, if you do this consistently, you'll get there. And one of the reasons why we can be successful is because we can go look at the success of other people and ask them, right, what did you have to do to get there? And if you go to another agent, another lender, and they go, hey, I did this and this and this, and it took me there. Following in the footsteps of somebody else is really powerful. Following in the footsteps of someone else can give you the energy and the momentum and the courage you need to have, because you go, if they do it, it can work for me. If they did it, this can work in my life. Make sense? And then ask yourself this in different categories of your life. What do I need to do? What are my fitness goals, right? What do I need to predict my fitness or my health this year? What do I need to do in my relationships to predict that I'm going to get where I want to go, right? You've got to track this in all different areas. And it's so weird when I talk to you about goal setting and everything else. I go, I remember years ago, one of my therapists, my counselor, my coach, whoever it was, they go, Wayne, I know one of your goals is to be a great dad. How are we going to track that? And at first I thought, that is weird. Like, why would you, how do you quantify being a great dad? And he goes, just play this out with me. Just play in here. And he goes, so I want you to start writing down, what does being a great dad mean to you? What does that look like? And then what could we actually track? And so I sat down, and here's what was amazing. I started to come up with stuff. And I started to go, okay, me being a great dad would be, you know what? Every weekend I spend 2 days with my kids. I can track that. And I go, it means that I'm only gone this much. I can actually track that. That can mean that with my kids that live in Alaska, I'm going to spend this many days with them throughout the year. And I can start tracking that. So you can't track everything, yet I can put in some measurable tracking numbers, and I can go, cool, here's for me to be a great dad, I can go, it's this many date nights with my wife. It's this many days where I'm just 100% with my kids. And I can start tracking some of that stuff. And it gives me a sense of security and peace. Here's what's one of the things that really messes up entrepreneurs all the time is without clarity. Think about this: without clarity of what I need to do today, or without clarity of how am I going to be a good dad, without clarity of how am I going to be a good spouse, it's like you have all these programs open in your mind, right? And it's just like a computer. If you open too many programs in a computer, the thing's going to shut down, right? So what can you do to close some of those programs? So a man that I was coaching last week gave me this brilliant example, and he goes, one of my intentions, one of the things I'm measuring, one of the lag was I want to have a great marriage. He goes, the lead measure is I need to have a date night, right? Great date nights, right? If I keep doing great date nights, if I do that, that will lead to a great marriage, right? The lag will be a great marriage. So he goes, I've spent 5-10 years in my marriage going, I need to have date night, I need to have date night, I need to have date night, I need to have carrying it around, and sometimes it happened, sometimes it didn't, right? And he goes, why don't I just make this predictable? Why don't I just say every other Tuesday night we're going on date night? And that's what he did. He goes, every other Tuesday night we're going on date night. Then he went out and he hired a sitter and said, hey, will you watch my kids, right? For the rest of this year, every other Tuesday night, put it in the schedule. And what's amazing about that is, first off, he realized he had control. There was something he could do. There's something in the lead side that could control the lag, right? How brilliant is that? And then he made a system around it that he can track. And because he then took the next step and actually put it in his calendar, hired the babysitter, etc. Now all of a sudden he gets to close that window. He gets to close that program that's open going, remember this, remember this, remember this, remember this. So ask yourself, what are some of those programs I can close by getting simple, by knowing what are the predictable 2 or 3 things I need to do every single day in my business that will naturally lead me to where I want to go. This takes some work, and yet I'll tell you what, doing a little bit of work on the front end will cause you so much relief, so much of a sense of peace at the end of the day. It's amazing when you get to go home at the end of the day and you go, you know what? I did the 2 or 3 most important things that are naturally, automatically going to lead me where I want to go. Right? A friend of mine said, we don't choose success, we choose the habits that take us to success.